everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liana. Today I'm going to be doing a get ready with me, which I have not done in a while. I'm going to be doing this eye look, this face look, talking about asexuality, which is not something I've really talked about on my channel before, but it's also not something a lot of people in general talk about before, which is why I want to do it. I hope that it's helpful for some of you. I definitely would have liked to have had somebody talking about this with me when I was growing up, so I hope you enjoy this 2 different pride flags in one look, putting this together, and if you want to hear me talk about pride, asexuality, just stick around. Okay, so I'm going to start putting some makeup on my face while we just talk about asexuality and identity and stuff like that. So I'm going to be basing my eyes really off of the asexual flag, which has purple, white, gray, and black in it. I think I'm going to start with purple. I'm going to start with this purple over here. It's kind of like a matte mid-tone purple, kind of an eggplant shade. So asexuality, I didn't know a lot about asexuality until I was in my 20s, probably late 20s to be perfectly honest. It's just not talked about a lot, especially in comparison to a lot of other identities out there, such as gay, lesbian, bisexual, and of course, heterosexual. The straights. So asexuality was kind of just something I didn't grow up hearing a lot about. So it took me a long time to kind of figure out that that's what I was, because I mean there weren't any discussions about lack of sexual attraction in terms of that being an actual identity. There were I could hear people talking about lack of sexual attraction as like, oh, you have a low libido, maybe due to being on certain medications, but an actual lack of sexual attraction, asexuality, having that be your sexual orientation, just was never brought up at all. There were never any characters in the books I read or the shows I watched, movies I watched, who had an asexuality as their orientation. So it was something that was just kind of a foreign concept for me, even though I could tell from the time that I was a teenager and everybody was starting to get their more serious boyfriends and girlfriends for the first time, that it's like, I'm not interested in these people the same way that everybody else is. And of course, at that time, I'm a teenager, I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, maybe I'm just not ready, right? Because I mean, I was really young, so of course, naturally, that's where my mind went. Maybe I'm just not ready. Maybe that's all that is. But a part of me also knew that wasn't really what was happening. Because I would look at other people and sure find them aesthetically attractive, but the idea of sex just like never, ever, ever crossed my mind. And it wasn't the same for people around me. Because going to high school, of course, how did that happen? Going to high school, of course, you're going to have conversations with your friends, people your own age, who are like, oh, I have a crush on this person, celebrities, I would have sex with them. And here I am just thinking like, that's not what crosses my mind at all. Ever. And so I thought that either I was very late to develop those feelings or there was something wrong with me. Especially since, you know, I got into my 20s and I still felt that way. It was like, hey, I have a boyfriend now. I'm supposed to want sex now, right? I don't. So that was kind of just something that just never ever crossed my mind, to be with a person and to be like, yeah, this is gonna lead to sex someday, yay! That just was nowhere in my range of thinking, my capacity of thinking. I didn't think one way or another about sex and never really have. It's like I am indifferent, 100% indifferent to it. So I guess we should kind of like define what asexuality really means, because I feel like it's really confusing. There can be a lot of conflicting info out there, which makes it even harder. So it's not simply choosing not to have sex. It is an actual lack of sexual attraction, which is on a spectrum. That's why it's called the asexuality spectrum. You can have some sexual attraction to people, maybe on a case-by-case basis. Like some people are ace flux, meaning that their sexual attraction fluctuates. Maybe you feel sexual attraction only to some people when you've been in a relationship for a very, very, very long time. Maybe you actually only have sexual attraction to people you've never met. There's a huge amount of variation with this. Some people will never feel sexual attraction. I have not ever felt it. I don't know if I will ever feel it. It's hard for me to say. So it's not the same thing as choosing not to have sex. That is celibacy. A lot of people get the two confused. There's also a difference between sexual attraction and romantic attraction. You can have one without the other. You can also have both together. I experience romantic attraction. I do not experience sexual attraction, or at least I have not yet. There are aromantic people who are also asexual. You can be aromantic without being asexual. You can be asexual without being aromantic. Aromantic means you don't experience romantic attraction at all. Asexual means you don't feel sexual attraction at all. So I don't feel sexual attraction, but I do feel romantic attraction, which means I'm not aromantic. I'm going to take this gray shade. I don't really have like a matte gray, so I'm going to take this kind of shimmery gray. There's a lot of confusion about whether or not asexual people are just confused, if they just need to find the right person. That's not the case. Asexual people, like any other sexual orientation, they're not confused. We're not confused. We know who we are. You wouldn't go up to a straight person and say to them, well, maybe you're just confused. Maybe you just haven't found the right person of the same gender. No, so that's not the case. We're not confused. We haven't found a lack of the right person. We just don't feel sexual attraction. And like I said, because attraction can be experienced differently by different people, it is a spectrum. So some of us actually do experience sexual attraction, and therefore will want a sexual relationship at some point. Some people on the ace spectrum actually don't experience sexual attraction, but will have sex anyways, just like to start a family or whatever, or maybe because their partner really enjoys it and they don't mind. There are some people who will be in a romantic relationship but never have sex. That's probably the type of relationship I would like. Because I experience romantic attraction, I feel like I would prefer to have a relationship where I kind of have like a best friend for life who I also cuddle a lot, hold hands with, do romantic things with, but don't actually have sex with, because it's something I'm indifferent to. Like I'm not like sickened by the idea. It's just not something that also is like, yeah, let's do that. I just don't get it. And never have. So and that's another spectrum as well. There are asexual people who are actually like, it's called sex repulsed. Like the idea of having sex physically repulses them. There are people who are very sex favorable, so they will have sex or don't mind having sex. And there are people like me who are just like completely indifferent to it. Don't care. One of the biggest things that bothers me that I have personally seen So I see interactions between other people in the LGBTQIA community interact with asexual people and kind of be like, you are not part of the LGBTQIA community, even though that's what the A stands for. It stands for asexual and aromantic. It doesn't stand for ally, despite what some people think. You don't belong to the community because you're straight. That's incorrect. Asexual people cannot be heterosexual because inherently we do not have sexual attraction. Asexuality is our sexual orientation, so we can't be heterosexual. We can be romantically and platonically oriented towards other people, so we could be heteroromantic, but that's not the same thing as heterosexual. So you could also be biromantic, panromantic, homoromantic, a whole bunch of these different identities, romantically oriented but not sexually oriented. So assuming that every single asexual person is hetero-oriented, especially heterosexually oriented, is false. It's kind of like, let's say you go out in public, you see 10 different people walking down the street. Because we live in a society that says straight is the norm. Norm, what does that even mean, right? Are you going to assume that every one of those people is heterosexual? Because you're probably wrong. How many family members do you have? Are all of them straight? Or are you just assuming they are? Because you might be wrong. So assuming that every single asexual person is hetero-oriented is basically just a byproduct of our society assuming straight as the default. It's incorrect. We know that there are people out there who are not hetero-oriented. We know this because the queer community exists. It wouldn't exist if everybody was straight. I myself consider myself pan-romantic. Pan means all, so it's like I am romantically oriented towards all genders regardless of gender. I don't really have a preference. So I feel very capable of forming bonds with anybody and would like to form bonds with anybody. So pan-romantic is always kind of fit for me. Like I could be in a relationship with anybody, and because it's not a sexual one, like I really don't care, you know? Maybe if I had a sexual preference, I would have a gender preference. I don't. Because there are some people out there who have a sexual preference and not a romantic preference. It's very complicated. So I personally don't have a romantic preference. I find myself capable of finding good qualities in people and finding different qualities attractive in people. And for me, that's not a gender thing. I once described myself as being attracted to people on a case-by-case basis, which still very much lines up for me. It's kind of like, okay, I meet this person, they're really cool. If we become friends, then I tend to maybe look at them a little bit differently. I can't ever form a romantic attraction without there being a platonic connection there first. So I have noticed, like, in the past, I tend to have, I guess what you would call a crush, mostly on people that I have known, like, for a while. Because there is no sexual component there for me. I have to have a connection with a person in order to actually be like, oh yeah, like I am romantically bonded with you now. Need to add some black. This is the best black I own, so I'm going to take this one, matte black. I feel like I want it to be like a very specific shape, so I'm going to take a small brush for it. Other misconception, the idea that asexual and or aromantic people are broken, robotic, have no feelings. And this is because we have started to get some asexual, aromantic coded characters on TV and in movies, and they are portrayed this way, which is harmful. And it leaves people who actually are asexual and aromantic open to harassment in their daily lives. And I say this because probably the biggest online presence of an asexual or aromantic person that I know, her name is Yasmin Benoit. And she is a young Black woman who is a lingerie model. And so a lot of people look at her and go, well, you can't possibly be asexual or aromantic because you're flaunting yourself sexually. You can't do that. It's her body. She can do whatever the fuck she wants with it, for one thing. And also, just because she's doing that and therefore you find it unfair because you know that you'll never get to have sex with her, doesn't mean she's not asexual. Not every person on earth is there for you to just sexually consume. I'm so sorry for you to hear this. It's just the truth. And so she gets an ungodly amount of harassment saying that she can't possibly be this, she can't possibly be that because she's too hot. She must be some sort of psychopath because being asexual and aromantic means you have no feelings whatsoever. It means you're just on the sociopathic spectrum. No. This is also people who can't understand having a relationship outside of what they know. Despite the fact that they probably have family and friends that they have these feelings for, the same way we do. So you know what a relationship like that could look like. But a relationship without sex is somehow weird. So some of the characters like I can think of on TV that have kind of contributed to this sort of stereotype and harassment, immediately my mind goes to Sheldon Cooper, who was one of the first characters to basically explicitly be said was asexual. And so the way that Sheldon acts on the show, now everybody sort of assumes, well, he treats his friends like shit. A lot of the time, anyway. He's obviously not capable of having empathy or caring for others. That must be a trait of asexual people, right? Right? No. This comes from the website The Mary Sue, where they did an article on Sheldon Cooper, and I totally agree with what they're saying here. Sheldon's friends are constantly saying and doing things that undermine his feelings about sex. In Season 6, Episode 2, Leonard asks Sheldon if he is finally becoming a red-blooded man with sexual desires, implying that asexuality is A, an abnormality or a defect, B, something that can be cured and that goes away with time, and C, something that detracts from a man's masculinity. Amy, Sheldon's girlfriend, is also forever hinting at Sheldon that she desires more from him sensually and sexually. After his "before I met you" confession, she asks him, "and now?" as if expecting that by meeting her, his asexual identity has magically changed. This reinforces the fallacy that asexuality can be cured by a specific person. For the record, his response was, "and now what?" because meeting Amy has not changed him. Furthermore, the cast is constantly badgering Sheldon about whether he will ever be intimate with Amy.
Clearly, the writers of the show see sex as the only source of intimacy in a relationship. Asexuality is an identity that is almost always dealt with poorly in the media. Characters who present as asexual are generally written as robotic and unable to comprehend normal human emotions. See also Castiel from Supernatural and the Doctor from Doctor Who. This reinforces the harmful idea that sex is inextricably linked with love and romantic relationships, and to separate them would be abnormal and dysfunctional. Furthermore, it perpetuates the misconception that asexuality and aromanticism are the same thing, that people who are disinterested in sex are inherently unable to take part in functioning romantic relationships or appreciate attractive people.
Sherlock in the BBC Sherlock series is presumed to be asexual. Again, he calls himself a high-functioning sociopath. So there we have another asexual character who apparently is sociopathic. That's great. Wasn't there somebody on Hannibal as well? I haven't watched that, but I feel like somebody was telling me that there was an asexual character on Hannibal. I'm not sure if it was Hannibal himself. If so, yikes. If so, 3 for 3, yay!
Hannibal Lecter is in fact asexual and has been thought of as asexual for many iterations now. This comes from asexuality.org forum from 2007, where somebody found a review on the Hannibal Rising movie. When Lecter finds refuge with Murasaki in France, she becomes her semi-nephew's sensei/lover, leading him through insufferable training sequences where, for foreshadowing's sake, her pupil tries on a spooky samurai mask. And undermining a fundamental part of Lecter's creepiness is asexuality. So as this poster points out, so a guy eats human flesh off the faces of his victims, but the fundamental part of his creepiness is that he doesn't experience sexual attraction. Evil.
But this is like what I mean about there not being good, accurate representation for asexual people, which makes it hard for people who are questioning whether they are asexual growing up to kind of have somebody that they can look to in the stuff that they watch and the stuff that they read and be like, that seems like me. I look at the asexual people that are currently being shown in media and I'm just like, whoa, no. Yeah. No wonder people think that we're robots and have mental health issues and all this sort of thing. It's not great. If I have mental health issues, it's not because I'm ace, it's because I have mental health issues, you know? Like, they're not related. You know when you have like a shape for something in your head and it just doesn't go the way you want it to, so now you're just like, what do I do to fix it? That's me right now. And the thing is, it's usually the people doing the harassing, the people who are, the term is acephobic or aphobic towards asexual people, who are the same people that are like, well, asexual people don't experience harassment. They don't experience any discrimination. Yeah. Feels good, don't it? So I want to incorporate the pan flag colors, which I'm going to do through an eyeliner. So I want to use some concealer to cut out a little line, a little blank space first. Honestly, some of the best asexual representation out there has been in the form of cartoons. And I feel like that says something that's not great, you know? If you have to rely on a cartoon to properly represent you, it's not great. That could be said of a lot of LGBTQ representation. Some of the best stuff is cartoons. But you know, we need to do better when a lot of people still think that asexuality is fake. Treat it like a thing that isn't real, doesn't exist. But at least people, a lot of people who aren't bigots anyway, accept that bisexuality is a thing, homosexuality is a thing. Asexuality is not widely accepted as a thing yet, when it is. Going to start with this sort of teal shade on the outer part of the wing. This golden yellow. And this bright pink red shade. Well, at least this part looks the way I wanted it to. A lot of people think that the pansexual flag looks a lot like the Romanian flag. They're not wrong. I'm not Romanian. Sorry to disappoint. I have to finish off with some white because I'm still missing some white from the Ace Pride flag, so I'm going to take this shade up here and wet it so that it looks a little more intense. Those eyes look pretty cool, if I do say so myself, and I do. My face is so sticky right now. I had a little bit of blue fall down on my cheek and I thought, oh, that's no big deal, my face is matte, but actually since it got hot in my room, it stuck to my face. I had trouble getting it off. I am going to use this bright lilac sort of shade here for my blush. Obviously going to use more purple than any other shade because that's me. Purple girl. And I'll use this Milk Makeup Holographic stick as a highlighter today. Again, it's purple. Purple and blue. And purple lipstick. What else would it be? There it is, finished combination asexual and panromantic, not pansexual Pride look. Of course, it's a little bit late. Couldn't get out in June because chronically ill, disabled, can't keep a schedule. But Pride is all year long. It's not just in June. And if you're only celebrating it in June, you're doing it wrong. Just saying. So I hope you enjoyed the video and me talking a little bit about asexuality. Hope you learned something, maybe if you didn't know a whole lot about it before. Definitely need more people talking about asexuality so that people actually know what it is versus really poor representation on TV, people thinking that we're all, you know, broken, something's wrong with us, that we don't care about people, that we're very selfish, that we're robotic, that we're sociopathic, and then people harassing us because that's what they think we are. It's not great. So if you're asexual, I want you to know that you're awesome. And that's what the A stands for in LGBTQIA+. It stands for awesome and asexual. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you and your loved ones are staying well and staying occupied. I hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.